After almost 3 years of the Megxit saga, Netflix has one question.
Are you still watching? Please say yes. We dropped $146 million on this.
Based on these reactions, that would be a yes.
It's dull. It's predictable. It's cliche-ridden.
These two narcissists back in the news again.
The first 3 episodes of Harry and Meghan certainly brought the drama, with Harry throwing shade at his dad and brother.
There can be a temptation or an urge to marry someone who would fit the mold.
And comparing his wife to his mother.
So much of what Meghan is and how she is so similar to my mum.
Meghan spilled the tea on her first meetings with the family.
Even when Will and Kate came over, I was a hugger. I've always been a hugger. I didn't realize that is really jarring for a lot of Brits.
How do you explain that you bow to your grandmother?
Like, I curtsied as though I was like...
Harry clearly loving that story. They weren't quite ready to reveal everything.
He had a list, apparently, of what he was looking for.
What were a few things on that list?
I'm not showing the list. Good, nice try.
But the pair did let us in on their pet names.
Oh, and then came H.
When I got to meet M,
Presumably a nod to their favourite clothing store. H&M at pains to justify the reason for the series.
Books are written about our story from people who I don't know. Doesn't it make more sense to hear our story from us?
Except much of what we learned had already been covered before. And in the grand tradition of Netflix reboots, this one messed up the continuity.
Meghan and I met over Instagram.
we were introduced actually by a mutual friend.
While the two versions weren't strict contradictions, the fresh details changed what we knew, including what it was that first drew H to M.
I was scrolling through my feed. It was like a Snapchat. Here's dog and dog ears.
So with more bombshell episodes still to come.
Are you still watching? We've got 3 more of these in the vault. Hello.
Journalist Latika Burke is in London for us. I know you've lapped up every minute of this series. Was it worth it?
Well, I had to live blog it for the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, so it's my duty to watch it. I can't say it was terribly interesting, and this is, I think, the biggest danger for Harry, Meghan and Netflix. A lot of people just found this completely dull. It didn't go into much new territory, and what we did see is, of course, fodder for Harry and Meghan's usual critics. I mean, look at the pages here in the UK today. We've got very, very critical front pages. This is the Daily Telegraph. It's a conservative paper, and it is full of criticisms and fact checks of what the couple said and didn't say. And so it's not exactly going down a treat in Britain. But then again, it wasn't supposed to.
So it turns out they met on Instagram. Like, why is that such a big deal?
Well, we now know that Harry likes a good old Insta stalk, huh? Very human, very non-royal. Look, what is really difficult for the couple is that we do constantly see these slightly changed stories from them, and they keep saying that they're telling their truth. Well, they had the opportunity to tell their truth in their engagement interview, and they clearly told a truth that wasn't quite true. So which truth are we supposed to believe? This is what's going to trip the couple up as they try and find friends and build their brand. The trouble for them, of course, is that brand is heavily toxic in the UK. I think it's shifting in Australia, and you're even seeing some fight back in the US as well. That's not to say that they don't have their followers. They certainly do. But even in The Guardian, which is a left-leaning paper here and is much more supportive of Harry and Meghan and has been all this time, even its editorial today contains some criticisms of the documentary and the way it's portrayed and what it leaves out.
Latika, aside from the Netflix sweet payday, what are they likely to get out of this?
Fame, notoriety. They certainly get a lot of money for telling their side of the story. And I think that's something that's becoming very clear. They don't like this arrangement where if you're in the royal family in the UK, you're taxpayer funded and there's an expectation that you are accountable to some degree to the media. Now, that means you're a highly sellable asset. You're someone who sells lots of papers for these media outlets, and you don't see a buck of it. For somebody like Meghan Markle, who's made a lot of money and tried to build a career from being famous, that must have been a very jarring episode and a culture shock for her. So the two of them are now setting out to make a fortune based on their own brands. what's really going to become clear in the next couple of days, and if Netflix releases its streaming figures for this, is whether people are interested in Harry and Meghan for themselves, or whether they're interested in them for their experiences and time in the royal family, and if that being cut short so quickly means they've diminished their own value.
Latika, good to chat. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.